Hare Krishna. Sorry, give me. Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my respectful obeisances. Thank you for giving your valuable time, Vaiyasaki Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Give a quick introduction and then we'll get started.
Okay.
His guest Vaiyasaki Prabhu is a disciple of Sri Prabhupada. It's been mentioned in 1978. Prabhu arrived in Bangladesh where he imbibed the culture through his course, becoming fluent in Bengali and learning the ways of local people. On a boat trip down the Meghna River, he chanced upon a local kirtan band in their way to a festival. Deciding to follow these happy minstrels and their soulful kirtan music, he would also attend the same festival, changing his life forever. It was there he discovered the ancient Bengali art of raga kirtan, which touched his soul in the deepest possible way. Never before had he heard such angelic singing. He resolved to use his own considerable vocal talents to spread this technique around the world. He returned to London with his own style of kirtan, blend of ancient Bengali and modern contemporary music. And Prabhu has released the first album in 1982, followed by many of them. So today we all know Prabhu was famous in kirtan. So Prabhupada also, I think Prabhu had preached in various parts of the world before Prabhupada left this planet. I think in 1973 was committed to the path of devotional Bhakti Yoga. Just 2 years later, he received formal initiation from his divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. On his Guru's request, he journeyed to India in 1975, both for personal purification to proclaim the renaissance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Bhakti movement. He traveled the entire subcontinent and Southeast Asia, serving the mission of Bhakti Yoga. So we are very grateful to have your association. We couldn't have our association of Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for that brief introduction. Basically, I'm a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and my name is Vaiyasaki Das, and Vaiyasaki means the son of Vyasdev. So the son of Vyasdev is Shukdev. So Vaiyasaki means Shukdev Goswami. So when I received that name, then I did some research to find out what is the meaning of that name. So Vaiyasaki is one of the 12 Mahajans. Balir Vaiyasaki Vayam. The 10th, 11th, and 12th are Bali Maharaj, Vaiyasaki, which is Shukadev Goswami, and Yamaraj. So I was thinking, I'm the servant of Shukadev Goswami, one of the 12 Mahajans. Then I discovered that of the 9 processes of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, like that Vaiyasaki or Shukadev Goswami attained perfection through Kirtanam. So that's why I decided that I should live up to the purport of my name that Prabhupada gave me and try to follow in the footsteps of the Mahajans and try to focus on the glories of the holy name. So since those days, that I was initiated in Los Angeles. I met Prabhupada in 1973 in London. Before that, I met his devotees and had met him through his literatures. But in 75, I was in Los Angeles and Prabhupada had come. And then he requested some of us to come to help him establish the India Yatra. So in 75, I came to India, and the first temple I lived in was Vrindavan. And I'm still living in Vrindavan. Of course, I've been coming and going over the last 50 years, but I've purchased a place here and I live in Vrindavan Dham. So just a little bit of background there. So today we wanted to speak about the glories of Srivas Thakur. So before we speak about the glories of Srivas Thakur, we have to speak a little bit about the glories of the Panchatattva. Srivas Thakur is one of the Panchatattvas. And according to the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Lord Chaitanya has come as, well, or let's put it this way, Krishna has come in 5 features as Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Sri Advaita Prabhu, Gadadhar Prabhu, and Srivas Thakur. So this is the Panchatattva. Krishna has come, he himself has advented to taste the mellows, the beautiful rasa of Madhurya Ras that Radharani was experiencing in her love for him. So Krishna wanted to experience what was that love that the gopis have for me. He also wanted to know, what is it about me that the gopis' hearts become melted and such love it pours from their heart when they think about me and see him. And then the third thing that Krishna wanted to understand was, what nectar are the gopis and Lord Radharani experiencing by that Krishna prema, that divine Madhurya love that they have for me? So wanting to understand this divine love, Mahabhava of Radharani, Krishna realized the only way I can understand is to experience it myself. And so Krishna came as a devotee. And that devotee was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came in the mood of Radharani, with the complexion of Radharani as a devotee. But he came with his eternal associates, his Nitya Parshad. So he came as Nityananda, along with him came Nityananda Prabhu, Balaram. And Lord Chaitanya accepted Nityananda as his elder brother, even though they weren't from the same family and they were born in 2 different districts. They weren't even related, but they were accepted as brothers because Lord Chaitanya is the greatest teacher. He's coming not only to experience and taste the nectar of Prema Bhakti, but he wants to show the example to everyone else. The greatest teaching is by our own personal example. What we say, people may forget, or it goes in one ear or out the other. But what we do and how we behave day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, then people take notice, this person, he's a Vaishnava, he's a devotee of Krishna, how different he is, how wonderful he is. So Lord Chaitanya accepted Nityananda as his expansion and accepted a subordinate position as the younger brother and accepted Nityananda in a superior position as his older brother. And Advaita Acharya, he's another incarnation of Krishna, Mahavishnu Avatar. So Advaita Acharya is Mahavishnu Avatar. So Krishna came as his Mahavishnu Avatar as Advaita Chandra. He also came as a pure devotee. Narada Muni came as Srivas Thakur. And the bhava of Radharani was exhibited, that devotional energy, that divine love current was exhibited by Gadadhar Prabhu. So these 5 elements, 5 facets of eternal reality, Krishna advented as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates known as the Panchatattva. So Srivas Thakur is the pure devotee. In the Krishna Leela, he was Narada Muni, also a pure devotee. So Srivas Thakur, we're going to discuss a little bit about his pastimes in Navadvip with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I just wanted to make one important point, that a lot of people think that Lord Chaitanya, he brought Krishna Prema with him. And before Lord Chaitanya came, there was no Krishna Prema and no one was chanting Mahamantra. This is not a fact, because Haridas Thakur was already chanting 300,000 names, 3 lakhs of names, before Lord Chaitanya even appeared. And he was finding difficult, he was a Muslim, born in a Muslim family. However, he had met a devotee, a great Bhagavat devotee, that convinced him to take up the path of prema bhakti, and he became a staunch devotee. But of course, there were always envious people that tried to make him fall down. So he was living in present-day Bangladesh in a little village known as Benapole, and people tried to send a prostitute there to make him fall down, and he became exasperated. Of course, he was so pure that that prostitute became his disciple. So I always call her the former prostitute. Now she's a disciple of Haridas Thakur. And he said, you stay in this hut where I'm living in the forest here, and I worship Tulsi and I water Tulsi and I chant the Maha Mantra. So he left that place and she stayed on and took his place. And he went to Shantipur to see Advaita Acharya, his godbrother. So Advaita Acharya and Haridas Thakur were lamenting that Kali Yuga has become so degraded. We're thinking how degraded it is now. But 500 years ago was not nearly degraded as it is today. But those pure devotees, they were seeing from their perspective, it was so degrading. There was Jagai and Madai, a few rascals like that. Now, everybody's a Jagai and Madai. So Advaita Acharya, he prayed to Krishna, please, the only way to save humanity is for you to advent yourself and bring Krishna prema to everyone. So he prayed like that. And then subsequently, Nimai was born. Lord Chaitanya was born. He was originally given the name Vishvambar, the maintainer of the universe, because when the astrologer calculated his chart, he said, this person is like outstanding, amazing. He could maintain the entire universe. We should give him the name Vishvambar. So the ladies, Sachi Mata and Sitarani Thakurani, the wife of Advaita Acharya, they were good friends. They were thinking Vishvambar is too big a name for a little boy. So the little baby was born in the courtyard of Jagannath Mishra under a neem tree. So Sitarani, she said, why don't we call this child Nimai? And everyone said, oh, such a wonderful name. So he became Nimai, and he grew up in Navadvip. Now, he became a scholar. He was very, very learned, and he quickly became known as Nimai Pandit. Now, Srivas Thakur was also living about 200 meters away, about a 5-minute walk away, his house from Jagannath Mishra's house. Now, Srivas Thakur, he had a very opulent home, very palatial, with huge walls and gardens, you know, and courtyards and everything. But he was a great devotee. So he was also a devotee. So all these devotees, Madhavendra Puri, Ishwara Puri, these were all great devotees of the Lord before Lord Chaitanya advented. So Srivas Thakur, he could see that Nimai Pandit was not an ordinary person. He could see that this person is Shaktavesh, avatar of some sort. He didn't know exactly. But he noticed that due to Nimai Pandit's scholarship, that he wasn't exhibiting the pure devotion that Vaishnavas are accustomed to. So one day he approached him. Hey, Nimai. Of course, he was senior to Nimai. He was married, he had children. So he spoke to him as a junior. And Nimai accepted him as a senior. And then he said, Nimai, I want to ask you some questions. Oh, Srivas, please. You can ask me anything. So Srivas asked, why do people study? Why do they study Shastra? Is it that they're trying to understand what is devotion to Sri Krishna? But if by such scholarship one doesn't gain devotion to Sri Krishna, well, then how will that learning even help him? Because all our studying and scholarship of the Shastra and memorizing shlokas, we don't gain devotion, a devotional mood in the heart for Krishna, then Srivas Thakur says, then that study becomes simply a tedious endeavor, which is shrama eva hi kevalam. In the end, it's simply a waste of time. So then Srivas said to Nimai, he said, if you've actually learned something from all your study, then begin your devotional service of Sri Krishna right now, because this is the purpose of your life. So Srivas Thakur was taking the position, he was a preacher, and he was preaching to this young teenager, Nimai Pandit, who was a great scholar, and this is what every preacher would do. So Nimai laughed, and he replied, by your mercy, Srivas Thakurji, certainly that will come to be. I will become a devotee. If you are kind enough to me, then definitely I'll attain devotion to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. So this was the relationship, Srivas Thakur. So he was a great devotee. Now, again, people were envious. I mean, the non-devotees are generally envious. The Vaishnavas are not envious. That's the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. The Vaishnava devotee is the well-wisher of every living entity. Or as Prabhupada said, your ever well-wisher. And the non-devotees are not your ever well-wisher because their heart is filled with envy. So the devotees being the well-wishers, they're always trying to give Krishna and Krishna prema to everyone. So in this way, Srivas Thakur was being the well-wisher of Nimai Pandit. And Nimai Pandit took it in the right mood and said, yeah, by your mercy, I will become my heart will melt and I'll gain some devotion to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Now, it wasn't long after that Jagannath Mishra left his body. And it was a great shock in the Navadvip community at that time because everyone loved Jagannath Mishra, everyone loved Sachi Mata, and everyone loved Nimai Pandit. That family was so well loved in Navadvip that you could say that they were probably the most popular family that everyone honored and respected and looked up to. So when Jagannath Mishra passed away, it was a great shock to the community. And Nimai was also in great shock. And he began to contemplate more and more about the temporary nature of material life. We have this temporary body. Temporary body means that in the end, everyone will suffer. Why everyone will suffer? Because everyone will die. And death is a painful experience. When you die, it's a painful experience. And when your loved ones see you die, it's a painful experience for them. Another painful experience of suffering in the body is disease. So many diseases are there. We get laid up. We lie in bed. We have a fever. We can't do anything. It's suffering. And then old age, you lose all your Shakti. Your eyesight becomes poor. Your hair falls out. Your hearing goes away. Your body becomes more and more useless. So Nimai was contemplating all these things, yet what was the value of all my study, How can I solve this problem of samsara? Because samsara dhava nalalida loka taranaya karuna ganaganatvam. That the samsara burns like fire. It's like a forest fire. And the only way the forest fire can be extinguished is when a monsoon cloud comes and extinguishes it with so much water. So a year later, at the time of to do the offer pinda, the shraddha ceremony, then Nimai went to Gaya to offer the shraddha ceremony, offer pinda to his father. And there at the famous temple, the Vishnupada temple in Gaya, he met Ishwarapuri. Now, Ishwarapuri was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, and he was a traveling preacher, and he used to preach and come traveling through Navadvip all the time. So he knew the Jagannath Mishra family. He knew Nimai as a young boy. He knew him as a growing child. He knew him as a young teenager, and he knew him as he became a young man. And now they meet in the temple, and in Gaya, which was the home of Ishwarapuri. So Ishwarapuri said, "Oh, Nimai, what are you doing here?" Nimai said, "Oh, my father has passed away. I'm here to offer Shraddha, the Pinda, for my father. But I've come to the realization of the temporary nature of the material world. And I realize that my scholarship has not really helped me much. And I need to take Diksha. I need to get initiation. I need to be connected to that eternal parampara. I need to take shelter of your lotus feet. Will you give me initiation?" So, of course, Ishwarapuri said, yes, please, you can come to my home when you finish doing your family business here for your father. And he gave him the address. You please come, and I will be very happy to initiate you into the Bhakti Marga, the process of devotional service. So what happened was, one afternoon, Nimai knocked on the door of Ishwarapuri and submitted himself for initiation. So Ishwarapuri did all the reformative processes of purification, and then he gave him the mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And he told him to take shelter of this mantra, to always chant this mantra. And what good is your studying of all these shastras? He said the same thing to Srivas Thakur. What value is it if you don't develop your devotion for Sri Krishna and then end your samsara in the material world and go back home, back to Godhead? So Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit at that point, now he got initiated. So he went away to his residence where he was visiting in Gaya. And then later that evening, as Srivas Thakur was about to Ishwarapuri was about to take rest, again he heard a knock on the door. He opened the door, and there was Nimai, and his hair was all disheveled, and there was dust and dirt on his face, and his clothes were all dirty and all disheveled. And he was terrified. He was frightened. He was thinking that Nimai had been accosted by some dacoits or something. "Oh, please come in, Nimai, please come in, sit down, let me get you some water. What happened? What happened?" And Nimai took the water, took a drink, and he said, "Guru Maharaj, I just have one question." "Yes, what is that question?" "What kind of a mantra did you give me?" Ishwarapuri was shocked. "What kind of mantra did you, this is the standard mantra. This is the mantra by which you gain devotion, pure Krishna prema. Why do you ask?" Nimai said, "Well, I went back to where I was staying. I sat down peacefully and I started to chant this mantra. And as I chanted more and more, my breathing became restricted. I couldn't breathe properly, and my heart started palpitating. Perspiration was coming from my body. The hairs in the back of my neck and my arms started standing on end. Tears were coming to my eyes. I tried to stand up to get some balance, and I was falling over. I was rolling around in the ground, and I was thinking, what's happening to me? What kind of a mantra have you given me? So when Ishwara Puri heard that, he said, wow, oh, Nimai, this is amazing. What you're experiencing are the Astasatvika Bhavas, the 8 transformations of divine love one experiences when the heart becomes overflowing with Krishna Prema. It takes people lifetimes to experience this. And you've experienced this in just a couple of hours. This is amazing. So Ishwara Puri calmed Nimai down and said, this is normal. You just go on chanting and you'll experience ecstatic bliss. So then Nimai was ready to go back to Navadvip, having finished all his duties for his family. And on the road back, he was chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, but more like a singing. He was singing and dancing, skipping along, very happily. And as he was passing different villages, people would see him and they would think, wow, who is this person so blissful, chanting the holy names? And some people from each village began to follow him. And they also started skipping and dancing and chanting. And soon, hundreds of people were following, more and more. And by the time that Nimai arrived back in Navadvip, there were thousands of people who had followed him there. And they were all chanting uproariously, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And Srivas Thakur came out of his home and he was astonished to see it. He was so happy. Advaitacharya and Haridas Thakur, when they heard about this, they were in Shantipur. They immediately came to Navadvip and they were embracing each other and dancing in ecstasy. Now at last, Nimai Pandit is experiencing that Krishna Prema, and now his purpose for coming here to spread it all over the whole world will be fulfilled. So everyone was really blissful. So then what happened was that Srivas Thakur had a chat with Nimai and said, I have a very large house and kirtan is best performed, with not thousands of people. It becomes too uproarious, but you come to my home. So I have a beautiful garden or a courtyard, which is now known as Srivas Angan. Angan means courtyard or garden in Bengali. You come there every evening and we'll do kirtan there. And we'll go deep, deep into the kirtan. And we'll taste this bhakti rasa. So Lord Chaitanya, he accepted this, said, Srivas, it's a wonderful idea. I'm so happy that you suggested this, so let's do this. So Srivas made all the arrangements and Chaitanya would come now his name was Chaitanya, he would come every evening. And more people would come, but it was by invitation only. Not that everybody could come. So these were the nocturnal kirtans in the evenings. So Lord Chaitanya had 2 kinds of kirtans. He had the daytime kirtans, which was open for everybody. And then he had the nocturnal kirtans, the antaranga kirtans, the internal kirtans with only the purest of the pure devotees, so they could taste the highest bliss. Now, Srivas, by the way, he was one of 4 brothers. They were all devotees. There was Srivas, Sri Ram, Sri Nidhi, and Sripati. And Srivas had a beautiful wife named Malini, and Malini was the good, very, very good friend of Sachi Devi, and they were all very devotional. They were all very friendly, and they had a son. Now that son had fallen ill, and he had a fever. So Srivas was thinking, Mahaprabhu is coming here and chanting these divine kirtans in the evenings. This will be the best thing for my son. And his wife Malini was thinking, yes, the purification of the holy name will cure my son of this heavy fever. But what happened was that during one kirtan, the son left his body. His fever became so much that he left his body. And the women started crying out of separation. Because they loved him so much. But of course, this is something that most devotees should understand, that if a person's about to leave his body and the relatives and the family members are crying, then that may induce that person to not want to leave due to attachment to his family members. So that's why the women are generally not allowed to be present at the passing of a great soul. In Benares, for example, many people go to Varanasi to then burn the bodies of the relatives and then put the ashes in the Ganga, but no women are allowed. And the reason is because if the women cry, then that soul may not get liberation due to attachment for his beloved family members. So Srivas Thakur understood this also. So, he could hear in the other room that the women were crying. So he closed the door and he brought the child into the kirtan, and he was dancing in ecstasy. My child has left his body during the kirtan of all the pure devotees here, Chaitanya, Nityananda, Haridas Thakur, Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar, they were all there. This is the most glorious thing. Now he's gone back to Godhead. So he was very happy, joyful that his son had been successful, had gotten out of the samsara and left his body during that kirtan at Srivas Angam, the nocturnal kirtans that were so potent. So Mahaprabhu, or Chaitanya at that time, he so much appreciated that mood of Srivas Thakur that he understood the higher understanding that we give up the body and that we're not the body. We give it up because we're not the body. We are the spirit soul, and now we're going back home, back to Godhead. So although the son of Srivas Thakur had a fever and he had left the body, Srivas was blissful. He had found his son lying dead in front of everybody, in front of the ladies, but he carried him in his arms and brought him to hear the kirtan, because Srivas Thakur understood there should be no grief, because even a most sinful person, if they die hearing the holy name and the glories of Krishna, they become liberated. So he was thinking, my son was so fortunate that he left the body hearing the Harinam Sankirtan of Lord Chaitanya and his devotees. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Gauranga, is personally dancing in my house. In this environment, my son is so fortunate that he has left his body to return to the spiritual world. So he told the ladies, if you wish to cry, do it silently in your own heart. Don't cry out loud. And don't disturb anyone. Don't disturb the ecstatic chanting and dancing of Gauranga. So in this way, Srivas Thakur, he had a very deep understanding. So that was that pastime. So I could say a little bit about the history of Srivas. Srivas, as I said, there was four brothers in that family, and he was part of the Panchatattva, and he had originally come from Srihatta in northern East Bengal. That nowadays that place is called Sylhet district, and it's in Bangladesh, which is now a Muslim country. This was all done during the partition by the British. They divided East and West Bengal and gave it East Bengal to the Muslims. But most of the Panchatattva came from East Bengal, from Srihatta or Sylhet. So that was the four brothers, Srivas, Sriram, Srinidhi, and Sripati. So Srivaspati was from there. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's father was from there, Jagannath Mishra. He had come to Navadvip to marry the daughter of Nilambar Chakravarti, a great devotee. And then he stayed in Navadvip, but he was originally from Srihatta also. Advaita Acharya was also from Srihatta. Nityananda wasn't. Nityananda was born in West Bengal. But so many of our devotees, like Haridas Thakur as well, they're all coming from East Bengal. So East Bengal in those days was very, very overrun with Krishna Bhakti. So we know that Srivas Thakur, who was previously Narada Muni, so he was a great preacher. And because he was a great preacher, and I was saying there were envious people, so just like the envious people tried to make Haridas Thakur fall down by sending the prostitute, but instead he just purified her. She became his disciple, and then envious people were defeated. Similarly, the envious people tried to make Srivas fall down and look bad in the eyes of the people. So one evening, some people came when everyone was asleep in the dead of night, and they put the paraphernalia for the worship of goddess Kali on the doorstep of Srivas Thakur. I won't even mention what some of those items are, but they're not very Vaishnava, let's put it that way. So in the morning, when Srivas Thakur awoke and opened his door and saw those items there, he realized that some envious people have come and they're trying to cause difficulty. So immediately he called all the elders of the community. Please come to my house. I have something to show you. Come for lunch. So they were invited for lunch. And when they came, Srivas said, just see, you see all these items? Secretly, I've been worshiping the goddess Kali. Of course, they didn't believe it. They knew he was a great devotee. They could understand someone has done this. Someone is trying to defame Srivas Thakur. But the way Srivas handled it was so Vaishnava. He didn't accuse anybody. He just said, these items are here. You know, perhaps I'm a worshiper of Kali and pretending to be a Vaishnava. So they could understand what had happened. So people were envious, and they're still envious of the devotees. Now, in the Vaishnava community in those days in Navadvip, Srivas Pandit and Sri Advaita Acharya were the learned heads of the Brahmin community. And they dedicated all their energy to the Lord's Harinam Sankirtan movement. Now that Sri Chaitanya had blossomed in his love for devotion and Krishna Prema. So there were the nocturnal kirtans going on quietly in the home of Srivas Thakur, but during the day, everyone was invited to Jagannath Mishra's home, where Lord Chaitanya was still staying with his wife and his mother, Sachimata. So those kirtans became famous all over Navadvip, and more people started coming. In fact, so many people were coming to those kirtans that again, the temple brahmanas in Navadvip became envious. Everyone's going over to Nimai's house. They're all doing kirtan there. Very few people are coming to our temple. And they became envious of Nimai. They said, how can we stop this? Because if people don't come to the temple, we don't get donations. And if we don't get donations, how we can support and manage everything? So the Brahmanas, the temple priests, the Brahmanas, they devised a plan. Let's go to the Qazi, the Muslim magistrate, who was the representative of the Nawab, who lived in the capital of East Bengal at that time. Well, actually it was West Bengal. It was called Goda. And he was there. And Navadvip was a small township, about a day's walk away from Goda. And so they presented to the Qazi 2 points. The first point was that Nimai Pandit is such an upstart that he's taking sacred mantras that are meant to be chanted by priests, purified priests in the sanctified alcoves of the temple in front of the deities. And he's taking these sacred mantras out and distributing them to everyone, to the riffraff, to the Shudras. And in this way, there will be a disturbance in the community as these people will start to be feeling that they can be independent. So that was their first point, that this would begin and cause a disturbance in the community. Well, the magistrate, he doesn't want a disturbance in the community. When there's no disturbance, his job is easy. But when there's disturbances and crime, then he's got a lot of work on his hands. So on that point, he sided with them. The second point that they made was that he was destroying Dharma, because Dharma has to be practiced within the confines of the temple. And it's not that you get thousands of people jumping up and down. That's not Dharma. And singing and dancing and banging on cymbals and drums. So the Qazi was a Muslim magistrate, but he was also a religious man. So when he heard that this was destroying Dharma, he also didn't like that. So he said to them, don't worry, I will issue a decree to make this so-called kirtan that this Nimai is doing, I'll make it illegal. So that's what happened. An edict was passed, a new ordinance that kirtan was illegal in the town of Navadvip. So one afternoon, while kirtan was going on near the residence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit, the Qazi came with an officer of the police officer. They stopped the kirtan. And the police officer grabbed one of the madangas. There were many madangas. He grabbed one, smashed it on the ground. And the Qazi said, this is a warning. There's a new ordinance in town that this type of external kirtan is outlawed. This is a warning. Next time we catch you doing this, jail. And then they left. And all the people who had been so happy, they had been chanting and dancing in ecstasy. Now again, they were feeling oppressed, the oppression of the government. But Chaitanya said, after the constables left and the Qazi left, he said to the people, don't worry about this. We will not follow this ordinance. We will have a civil disobedience. You go home and you tell all your friends, all your neighbors, all your relatives and family members to come to my home tomorrow afternoon and bring drums, cymbals, conch shells, flags. We're going to have a super Maha Kirtan in defiance of this new ordinance by the Qazi, the Muslim magistrate. So this was the first civil disobedience movement in India 400 years before Gandhi. You know, Gandhi had been inspired by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's civil disobedience. And so he followed that same path, and he was successful also. Got rid of the British, although they partitioned India and chopped off the left arm and the right arm, which was East Bengal and West Punjab. But anyway, that's another story. So the next day, everyone came, and we all know what happened, that they had this uproarious kirtan. And Nityananda Prabhu said, why don't we take this through the streets of the town and go straight to the home of the Qazi? Great. Everyone said, great idea. And they were at this Maha Kirtan going through the streets of Navadvip towards the home of the Qazi. And then the Qazi's at home. It's evening. He's finished his namaz, which is what they do 5 times a day, the Muslims, and ready. His cook is cooking his evening meal. And all of a sudden, his servants runs in. Oh, there's a huge disturbance in the town. Disturbance? What disturbance? It's Nimai. He's challenging your order. Huge kirtan with thousands of people, and they're coming this way. The Qazi looked out his window and he saw everybody coming. He was terrified. He ran into his room, closed the door, and locked it. But of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's a great devotee. So he stopped before reaching the home of the Qazi. And he said to Nityananda, you please go knock on the door of the Qazi and invite him to have a discussion about his new ordinance, to see whether it's dharmic or not. He's, we've been told that what we're doing is adharmic. Well, let us have a discussion. We can discuss on Shastra, whatever Shastra the Qazi wishes to discuss, we can discuss. So Nityananda invited the Qazi, told him this, you have a nice, gentle, scholarly discussion, no violence, everything peaceful. So they discussed, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he quoted from the Quran, he quoted from the Bible, he quoted from the Shastra, the Vedas, the Puranas, from the Upanishads. And he completely defeated the Qazi. So then the Qazi realized that he had made a mistake. So he said, yes, I was wrong. So I promise you now, Nimai, that from now on, from this day forward, as long as either I or any of my children and children's children come and will manage this town, that kirtan will go on unimpeded forever. And so that's what happened. And these days, during the Gaur Purnima festival, people come from all over the world, and they do Harinam Sankirtan through the streets of Navadvip and Mayapur. And they go to this one particular place, which is the shrine where the Muslim Qazi was buried. And they do Harinam Sankirtan around his tomb. So, and Srivas Thakur was in ecstasy. Everybody was there when this happened, and everyone was so blissed, and how Nimai had now changed from the scholar to the great devotee, and everyone in Navadvip was chanting Hare Krishna and experiencing Prema Bhakti. So I see now that it's 6:20 my time, so it's like we only have 10 minutes left. So let me just pause for a second at this time and ask if there are any questions. So if there are some questions, I'd be very happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vaiyasaki Prabhu, for wonderful narration. I'd like to hear your kirtan for at least 5-10 minutes. If there are no questions, we should go ahead with that, I think. Let's see. Dear devotees, anyone has any questions? Raise your hand or put in chat. Let me see.
I have a question, Prabhuji.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Wonderful, wonderful narration class. I would love to hear your Kirtan too. I had a quick question. Since Srivas Thakur is a part of Pancha Tattva, I've always wondered why there is no fasting like on his appearance day. Why don't we celebrate his appearance or and Gadadhar Pandit's appearance in a big way? Like we do for Advaita Acharya, we do fasting till noon. Is there any specific reason for it?
That's a very good question. And I also had that same question many years ago. So when I asked the question, I got the answer. Are you ready to hear the answer?
Yes.
The reason that we celebrate the disappearance day of these great acharyas is because their disciples know exactly when they left their bodies, and their disciples arranged that. Srivas Thakur didn't have any disciples. He didn't take disciples. So no one knew the exact date that he disappeared. Same with Narada Muni. Same with, so many people. So that's the reason. It's because the disciples, they arranged, they put their guru in Mahasamadhi. This is a day he departed, and every year on that day, they glorify him. And so it becomes a tradition over hundreds of years. And when you don't have any disciples, then that doesn't happen. So it's just a very simple answer. Obviously, Srivas Thakur is part of the Panchatattva. He's as honorable and respectful and as spiritually potent and transcendental as any of the others, but he didn't have any disciples, and therefore his disappearance day was unknown. And his appearance day also is unknown, because when he was born in Sri Hatta, this was many, many years before there even was a Sankirtan movement, so no one knew when he was born either. So that's the simple answer. A very nice question.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with that. I've been wondering for years, why it is not celebrated. So thank you so much. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah, I also heard, I think, in this week only, some class one of the Maharaj is giving, that when disciples glorify Vyas Puja is mainly meant for, even though Guru is thinking he is a disciple, but he is allowing his disciples to glorify him, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu established on Nityananda Prabhu's glorification of Vyas Puja. So it is for disciples to get purified, understand the Guru Tattva and Guru's position. So that's why his appearance, disappearance, Vyas Puja ceremonies are there. But since Srivas Thakur obviously doesn't have, so there was no need for him. He's not thinking he's spiritual master. So,
Yeah, when we have the Vyas Puja, it's understood that we're not just honoring and glorifying our own personal guru, but the entire parampara. We're honoring everybody in the parampara. Evam parampara praptam amam rijashayo vidhu. So Krishna tells Arjuna. And then now the parampara system, he says to Arjuna, has been broken, so I'm reestablishing it with you. So it's being reestablished, and all the persons who were part of that parampara, including Srivas Thakur, they're receiving all that glorification and respect and honor also. It's not just one person. Of course, the neophytes who don't have a deep understanding of the tattva, they think, oh, I'm just honoring my guru. They don't realize all the other great personalities. They only can see their guru. But Prabhupada taught us that the pure devotee is transparent via media, like a window. When you look at a window, you don't see glass. You see the trees and the sky and the birds, and you see everything. So similarly, the transparent via media guru, when you look at him, you see all the acharyas, you see Krishna, you see Vrindavan, you see Radharani, you see the complete tattva of spiritual life, Goloka. So that's the deeper understanding. But new devotees, it takes, you can't expect them to understand that immediately. Hare Krishna.
thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Oh, Amritam Prabhu has a question. Then we have to hear the Kirtan. Okay, Amritam, go ahead.
And any other question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisance, all praise to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for your class.
Jai.
I joined 5 minutes late, so I don't know if you already covered this. My question, Prabhuji, is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended with all his associates.
Right.
So in Krishna Leela, who is Srivas Prabhu?
Srivas Prabhu in Krishna Lila is Narad Muni.
Oh, okay.
Narad Muni, pure devotee. He travels throughout all the universes, spreading the glories of the holy name. So he advented in Gauranga Lila as Srivas Thakur. That same Narad Rishi, who is so famous in Indian films, Narayan, Narayan. He's always chanting the holy names of the Lord. So that Narad Rishi, he became Srivas Thakur.
So Prabhuji, he is Jiva, right? He and he's the only Jiva amongst all of them. So
Well,
there's
but he's the pure devotee, the pure, from our perspective in the material world, we're making distinctions. This is Jiva Tattva, this is Vishnu Tattva, this is Shakti Tattva, but from the spiritual side, from the Goloka side, they don't make those distinctions. They see everyone equally. They have equal vision. Krishna has equal vision. This is what he explains to Arjuna. Ram explained the same thing to Hanuman. When Hanuman was building the bridge to Lanka, and he was putting the name Ram on these huge boulders and floating them on the sea, there was a little Gileri up in the tree. And he was so inspired by seeing Hanuman doing this seva for Lord Ram that he came down off the tree, ran to the seashore, and put in a few little stones. Meanwhile, Hanuman's coming holding these huge boulders. And he said, "Hey, Gileri, get out of the way. I'm doing big seva here. What good are your few little stones?" And then Lord Ram chastised him. "No, Hanuman, you are doing your best, and he is doing his best. Therefore, you are equal in my eyes." And he, with his 3 fingers, he began to pet the Gileri. And that's why today people say, that's why the Gileri has 3 stripes on his back. That's what they say here in Vrindavan. So, yeah, equal vision from the spiritual perspective. But from our perspective, we see differences. So that according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Panchatattva, they're all one, they're all equal, even though one is a devotee and the other is God. And we're making a difference. From in the transcendental Goloka platform, there is no difference. So we have to understand different perspectives.
Thank you,
Is
Prabhu.
that helpful?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jagadish, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanur Prabhu. My humble
Hello.
obeisances to you, please accept it.
Thank
Prabhuji,
you.
I have a question like you mentioned, like the Vaishnava behavior day by day, month by month, year by year, attracts others and show them this is not the ordinary or not like the fake person. So being like I see the proper disciples, we want to, whoever we hear, we want to hear more and more, because their behaviors and their, the on implementations, proper instructions. So how to observe those qualities? So first satisfy ourselves and then, will satisfy others, then only make a difference. So how to observe those qualities? Can you, Prabhuji, give some lights?
How do we observe these qualities? Well, the more pure we become ourselves in our own heart and in our own mind, that then we begin to see the pure qualities in others. I'll give you an example. Everyone knows that I'm not this body. I'm Nitya Krishna Das. I'm Atma. This is called Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of the spirit soul, Atma Tattva, the truth that I'm the Atma. But when I see other people, I don't see the Atma. I only see bodies. I see a male body, I see a female body, I see an American body, an Indian body. Why is that? Because I see myself as a body. As long as I'm seeing myself as a body, I see others as a body also. But once I start seeing myself as a spirit soul and start living as a spirit soul, I begin to see others as spirit soul also. So it comes from within our own consciousness. The good qualities are there in every living entity. Krishna can see them. We can't see them yet, but as we become more and more pure, we will see them more and more. Is that helpful?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Now it's time for Kirtan Prabhu. Please, 10 minutes at least.
Well, if you want to hear my kirtan, the best is to hear the kirtans that were recorded, because I'm alone in this room with no instruments or no anything. And kirtan isn't just one man by himself. That's japa. So if you want me to do japa, I can do. But I can chant Namayom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. I can't hear you respond, so I'm just going to keep on going. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bol. All nourished with grace, Vaiyasaki Prabhu ki jai.
Yeah.
Wonderful to hear the Kirtan. Prabhu.
Thank you very much for inviting me and engaging me in service to the holy name and service to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna.
Maybe in next class we'll have 15 minutes, and so that you can have your instruments ready and everything. We'll have at least 10-15 minutes Kirtan at the end. Thank you.
So yeah, you can.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.
Sunday feast program is on today evening. Please join 5:30 to 9. And March 30th is the Thursday, is Ram Navami, fasting till sunset. So we'll have an evening celebration, and Sunday also we'll have part 2. So please join. So Govindas is on, govindasnj.com. You can place your orders. Next upcoming Sunday speaker will be His Grace Amarendra Prabhu is speaking, followed by next His Holiness Saladhara Swami Maharaj will be speaking in the following week. So please tune in, join before the Zoom fills up. So next 2 weeks. Thank you. Hare Krishna. We'll conclude today's session. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.